listening to the 23 Personnel Podcast, a Texas Tech athletics podcast where food and sports clash at the goal line. Here are your hosts, Spencer and Michael.
All right. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the 23 Personnel Podcast. I am your host, Spencer, joined, as always, by Michael. Michael, what's up, man?
Hey, I'm there's just too much sports on the TV. There's too much, Spencer. I don't know how I'm going to keep up with my Spurs, my Lady Raiders, my Red Raider basketball team, my football team.
Texas Tech soccer team.
Oh my gosh. The other football team.
The other football.
The nationally recognized football team. We'll get to them in a little bit. There's just so much going on, man. How are you? How are you? You know what? We haven't been on air talking about the World Series championship since it happened.
I've been holding it in.
We talked about it Thursday on the instant reaction, but it was after we had recorded. I want to give you the floor. How does it feel?
Man, it feels pretty amazing, pretty freaking good. It's one of those things where, like, I grew up a Rangers fan. Baseball was my first sport, my first love. It's the first sport I played. And I went to Rangers games when I was real little. Just loved baseball. When they got to it in 10-11, and I was like, man, that was so close. And then they've been so bad for so long. It was just something like almost kind of written off, like maybe that was a shot, or because this one kind of felt like it came together so quickly, but it wasn't like a lot of build up to it. It was just like, oh man, like, hey, you led the division for most of the season. You're like I even said it beforehand. I was like, it was a little bit of a surprise. We weren't expected to be competing this soon. And then you kind of fumble there at the end, and you have to play through the wild card. Like, well, you made the playoffs. You're ahead of schedule. You made it to the ALDS against the top seeded Orioles. It's like, well, great. You made it out of the wild card. You made it against the Orioles, whatever, and then you beat them. And you're like, well, ALCS, here we go. And it goes game 7. And there were lots of times when I was not the most confident Rangers fan, because what team goes and wins every road game when you play 7 games in the CS, and you're you don't have home field advantage, then you didn't need a home game. So, and then you get to the World Series, and there were moments there where it's like, man, it's like it's lining up against you. You lose game 2 the way you did. You come out in game 3 and you start losing you lose your starter in Scherzer there. You lose Garcia, who had been so hot until that time when he got hurt. The way the pitching matchup had gone in game 3, you're like, man, it's possible that like Arizona's just like setting themselves up to just come roaring back here after losing game 1, right? But you end up winning the World Series 4-1.
Dominating pretty much.
Except for game 2.
The 4 wins were dominant though.
And even then, like I didn't rewatch it, but I was going through so many of the highlight packages they put out. Even game 2 was close until the very end. So as down as I felt about that game as it was happening, like it was a close 1 or 2 run game until like the 8th or something. But I mean, it's fantastic, man, to do it the way you did it. I couldn't care less about the fans of teams in bigger markets or that have been there more frequently, more recently. downplaying the significance of the World Series when nobody watched it. Couldn't care less, man.
Bunch of
Um,
losers. That's
because you
just
know what?
all
That
bunch of loser talk.
championship banner will fly forever.
Yeah. And what Texas did to get there is super impressive in the fact that they got there and dominated in the way they did. That's I always come back to this, and I'm sorry, but the Spurs had a lot of that same thing because they got to they took on LeBron at the Cavs, and that was pretty much all that the Cavs had that year. But they fought through the Western Finals to do it. A lot of those years was just the hardest part was getting to the finals, and that kind of seems like that's how it went with the Rangers this year. But they didn't even struggle until the ALCS. So I just feel like it was a very dominant performance overall. Sure, they took Houston to 7, but ended up
Houston's a
winning it on the road.
Houston's a dang good team.
Yeah, they're a seriously good baseball team.
And this is something I shared, but like, and of course, I think he would have to say it, but I have a friend who's an Astros fan, and even as the CS for both leagues was still going on, he's like, it doesn't really matter what happens in the NL. Whoever makes out of the American League is going to win the World Series. I was like, I don't know, man. The Phillies are pretty legit, and if the Diamondbacks make it out, I mean they beat a pretty good Phillies team to do it. I think he's right, man. I don't think the Astros would have swept the World Series, but I mean, shoot, this you really only have that one other shot to do it in a faster fashion than the Rangers did it. And then oh my goodness, there was the Rangers released it. Was it today? That package of videos of like fan reactions queued up with the radio call, and like they were just chopping through like all the different reaction videos they had on Twitter. Still, man, I'm telling you that one of that probably late 50s, early 60s man, when he just like he like one fist pump as the game went final, and then he just sat down and broke down crying. Like I felt that, man.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I was the game was late enough in our house. The kids had gone to bed. The baby was asleep, so I wasn't screaming. I was trying not to be super loud, but I yelled once, pounded my chest a couple of times, and I just sat there. Like I didn't bawl, but I
Yeah.
cried, man. I was like, I did it, man.
Yeah.
They won the freaking World Series.
Finally.
Yeah, finally. So
Because when you get that close back and you have some transcendent players and a manager and just a lot of players and people on the coaching side of things that fans just loved and adored, and then for it to not come that way and to have such a lead then and everything, that makes it even that much harder. And so you're kind of still yourself over the last decade of when this finally happened. It was probably still hard to accept that, well, not only could Texas win this, but they could dominate in the process. You can't look at it that way as a fan. You just can't allow yourself to do it. I would have been the exact same way, or I was the same way because lifelong Rangers fan as well.
hey, it's the bandwagon's got room, man. Jump on. Couldn't care less. You didn't grow up a Rangers fan. Join us.
I lived a lot closer to Arlington then than I do now, so
it's true.
there you go.
I was gonna save it for some of our what do we learn. I was looking for a World Series hat. I didn't want the World Series champions hat. I've talked about this. I think that one looks kind of goofy. I want the one with the patch on the side that has the World Series champion, the fitted hat
Of
like
course.
this.
Yeah.
I wanted the blue hat. This blue hat with the big World Series champions patch. The MLB shop sold out of basically every size. And I was like,
Small market
fine,
team.
fine.
Small market team.
I'll look at the red version. If I have to get red, Even worse, the red one was like almost completely sold out. It was like baby blue, like the baby blue
Oh, that would be
top
sharp though, man.
with the other regular blue.
Yeah.
Same thing. They were all sold out. I was like, well, I'll have to wait till I get some more in stock or something because I have to have me one. I have to.
You just stick Santa Claus on it, and that'll be your
It's on my
Christmas
Christmas list, and it's
Yeah.
one of those things. I typically just share it like an Amazon list. You're not finding this bad boy on Amazon. It needs to be like through the official shop.
Yeah.
And maybe I just need to walk over to the Cardinals and just like, look, man, I need to hook up. I need the real thing in person.
Yeah. Guys, what can you do for me?
Instead of ordering it online. So hey, you also brought the Spurs. My Mavericks are 6-1 in the young season. So I don't know how they look. Haven't seen a single second of basketball because Bally Sports sucks.
The only Mavericks game I watched was when they opened against the Spurs. And I think we talked about that game a little bit. Mavs are looking salty. They've got a young rookie on there, and man, I can't remember his name at all, but
is it
he
Luka?
looked really good. No, Luka, of course. I mean, I think we talked about that. He had the most effortless triple double that night. Just makes it look easy.
They're hosting the Raptors tomorrow. The 3-4 Raptors.
The Spurs are going to New York. They're going to be playing the Knicks in the Garden, and it's on ESPN. So I will be. I think it starts. I know it is an hour staggered from the Tech game, so I think it starts at 6. Tech plays A&M Commerce at 7, and so I may have the ESPN split screen going on the Xbox so that I can kind of keep an eye on both.
Are you talking about Grant Williams from the Mavericks?
Yeah, who did he play for?
Tennessee.
Okay. Is he a 7-footer? Is he a big guy?
6'6".
I don't know if it was him. No, it was.
Is it Lively?
Yes.
Derek Lively, 7'1" from Duke. Oh, yeah, he's even younger. He's 19.
Yeah, he was. I think he had 12 or 13 points or something in very few minutes against San Antonio. I don't know how he's done since then because I'm not a Mavs fan, but
San Antonio.
Yeah, he's done. He did really well in that game, and I expect him to continue to play well for Dallas.
Well, he's played all 7 games, averaging 9 points, 7.7 rebounds, shooting almost 78%.
The Spurs season is going to be a roller coaster because they scored 111 the other night and lost by 44 or something.
Oh my gosh! Like,
who was it they played? It wasn't Phoenix because they've already played them twice. But
how have you played a team twice this early in the season?
I know, and I think they were back to back.
Let's see.
And they won them both, I think. One of them, they came back really big and won. And then the other one, I think they just kind of led for a while. Let's see. Oh, the Pacers. Yeah, the Pacers beat the absolute crap out of the Spurs last night. 152 to 111 in regulation. And they didn't have, I looked in their stat. I couldn't watch that game because Bally Sports. But I couldn't. I thought, well, man, maybe they must have had some player just go off. They must have had like a Luka score 43 or something. No, there were just like 7 players that had 19. I don't know. It was just everybody just did whatever they wanted against the Spurs. So
hey,
it's going to be an up and down season for that team. What's up?
I don't follow the NBA. What is this in-season tournament?
That's a new thing they just started, and I don't fully understand it, but that's exactly all it is. It's just a little in-season tournament. I don't know if every single team's involved in it, but I think they are.
Because some of these games are marked as like in-season tournament group play.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you what it's about.
Because
I know it's something to kind of make things a little interesting in the middle of the season, but I feel like it would make more sense if they did it around Christmas or something instead of this early on. Because the NBA likes to kind of own Christmas. They usually have a lot
Hmm.
of games on Christmas Day, and that seems like a time that would kind of lend itself. People are more folks are at home. You could have games at different times as opposed to just always have to be in the evenings. Um, but I'm not really familiar with the format. I just knew it was something that they were just started to try this year. I applaud them for trying something different, giving it a shot. But man, I couldn't tell you a thing about it.
Yeah. So I was just going through looking at the scores to see how the Mavericks have gotten to where they are. Um, so their first two, I'm assuming these are preseason games. First two matchups against the Timberwolves, they're back to back on the 5th and the 7th of October in Abu Dhabi. And then I guess on the way back, they stopped in Spain and played Real Madrid, not the soccer team. And then 10 days later, they hosted the Pistons, and then went to San Antonio on the 25th.
Yeah,
The
that's the season
Spurs.
opener.
Okay, so they beat the Spurs, the Nets, the Grizzlies, Bulls. They lost to the Nuggets, and then beat the Hornets, Magic, and are facing the Raptors. I get this weird like nostalgia feel for like middle years of elementary when I start talking about the NBA mascots. I had one of those like pouches or packs of pencils, and they were just had like every team logo on it. So like whenever I think about, and I'm looking at these basketball teams that I don't see a whole lot of, like usually like Eastern Conference teams. I'm just like I just get nostalgia for all those pencils I had in elementary school. The Magic and the Raptors and
The Nuggets.
well that's a West team. The Hornets,
Oh, I didn't know you were going specifically Eastern. Yeah, the
the
Hornets were really cool. I like their colors too.
Bulls, Pistons. Of course, the Bulls were super good when I was
Yeah,
that age. They had
the
you know
Hawks.
the Mike, little Mikey. So 18 minutes. Let's go ahead and just say that we're not going to talk about the TCU football game. We did on the instant reaction. Um, nothing really else to add. Probably except for like maybe you had a better performance looking back than we probably give credit for Thursday night. Um, but beyond that, excuse me. You hope to repeat that kind of performance and that kind of success moving ahead, which we'll talk about the game this weekend, the football game, the American football game against Kansas, because there's another football game this weekend. Texas Tech soccer starting the NCAA tournament, hosting at home. They were they fell in the Big 12 tournament to Texas, but then were selected as a 2 seed in the tournament, and they're going to host Florida Gulf Coast on Friday evening here at the John Walker Soccer Complex, 6 p.m. Friday.
Yes. So if you're
So
in town, and unfortunately you're gonna have to make some choices because the Lady Raiders play at 7 on Friday here in town. I think they play Tarleton, but Tech will be hitting the pitch at 6 p.m. Michigan and Princeton will also be playing at the same time, and that is who Tech would play the winner of if they get to move on. And Princeton is the 7 seed, so they're hosting. So they're hosting Michigan. If Tech is able to get past Florida Gulf Coast, they'll play the winner of that game on the 17th. So next Friday, the following Friday. And I'm assuming Tech would continue to host since they're such a high seed. You know, I'd imagine up until they get to the quarterfinals, they would be hosting if they're able to continue on.
mhm.
And that's, you know, great news for people in Lubbock, great news for Red Raider fans. Try to get out there to John Walker if you can and support the Red Raiders on the soccer field because they've really earned it. I mean, their first loss was the one that Spencer just mentioned, and that was in a Big 12 tournament. That was their first loss of the year, and they lost by 1. and just really have been putting on a clinic for the entire season. And you know, being able to get this seed and be where they are, it's a huge testament to what this program's accomplished. So hopefully they'll continue on and get to play further into this tournament. But it all starts on Friday.
Yep. So you mentioned you have to make a choice. You're making a choice right now because you didn't, because the Lady Raider basketball game wrapped up about an hour ago. So you didn't have to choose them or us. But we'll get to more of a recap. But they started the season off right with a 42-point win. Huge.
And it was was it even that close?
95-53 was the final.
Yeah.
A lot of people want 100, but when you're up by that much, you're probably not shooting threes, and well, you shouldn't be. But two final thoughts on TCU before we move on to Kansas. Michael, your score prediction was closer than mine, 31-26. The final score is 35-28, but I had the correct team winning, so
yeah,
I get credit there.
You do.
27-20. It was a touchdown off 8 points off both teams. I didn't think there would be that many points. So you got to go 2-1. The remaining to hit 6-6. Not impossible. You're hosting UCF next weekend for your final home game, your senior night. First, you got to travel up to Lawrence. That game did go a couple points, percentage points in the predictions in your favor from 42-44. So getting a little closer to a pick 'em, if you will. I know the points right now are 3.5 in Kansas's favor, but as the home team, that would indicate it's going to be a pretty close game, or could be a pretty close game. And then final there on Black Friday in Austin against a team that has looked pretty good, at least defensively will be pretty good. They've been allowing teams to rush for like 2 yards per carry.
Yeah.
Which doesn't really line up well, even without Ewers. Like if he's not able to come back, which that'd be a significant injury if he's out that long. But their run defense could help keep them in the game, even if they are without Ewers. Keep them in the game. Let's be honest; it's going to be a long shot for Texas Tech, anyways. But we got a couple games to get to before we even talk about the Longhorns. Jayhawks are up first. They are 16th in the polls. Tell me the last time they were that high. Was it 2007 when they went to the Orange Bowl? Probably.
Maybe so. And that's number 16 in the college playoff rankings.
Playoff,
which has never been ranked in.
You didn't have to bring that up.
I have to every now and then.
S&P, though, slight favorite to Texas Tech. You are 35th. Kansas is 40th. You did slide one spot, 34th to 35th this past week. And you are no longer the best 5-loss team in the country.
Boo.
TCU takes that honor at 29th, but you gave them their 5th loss.
Congratulations, TCU.
You gave them their 5th loss, whereas you stayed at 5.
That's great.
Game will be 11 a.m.
Glad we could help.
Yeah, 11-11 at 11. FS1, y'all know Lance Leipold, 3rd season out there for the Jayhawks. They are the 23rd best home team, 4th in the Big 12. Texas Tech, not so great on the road, 54th. Kansas is 5-0 at home this season, 7-2, so they are still cruising ahead of schedule with, what's that, 3 to go? So could the Jayhawks go 10-2 this year, Michael?
No, let's
right?
not talk about that.
That's not possible, right?
I don't think so. Well,
what's their remaining schedule?
I'm pulling it up right now. So obviously,
I got Tech,
then Kansas State, Then they host
Cincinnati.
Kansas State. They host Kansas State, and then they go to Cincinnati.
Okay, chalk up Cincinnati because I'm. So that's 8-2. I mean, even if they went 8-4, shoot, that'd be pretty significant season for them.
Yes,
Let's
it'd
see.
be a significant one for Texas Tech to go 8-4.
Well, they're not getting there this year.
That was what I predicted this year, and I thought that was just going to be amazing. And now Kansas may do it. Damn it!
Yeah, it could go 10-2, but let's not talk about that.
No, let's not get there.
When Kansas has the ball, they are the 18th S&P Plus ranked offense going up against the 53rd ranked defense. Jason Bean is your likely starter at quarterback. Jalen Daniels has been out for a little bit with a back injury, so those are always iffy, but they've still been winning with Bean. Outside of, I mean, they lost to Oklahoma State, which is okay. What? They're good when they look like crap. I mean,
they're tied for first place in the Big 12 now.
I guess hats off to Gundy and I guess to the running back Ollie Gordon and Alan Bowman figuring enough stuff out. Even though, okay, so I watched the end of the Bedlam game. Neither team wanted to win that game, Michael. Bowman apparently has never run a 4-minute offense. Like they were trying to eat clock and he was snapping the ball with 15 seconds left on the play clock.
That's that Cliff Kingsbury in him. He just can't. Or not, no, it wasn't Kingsbury. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, they had a
Kingsbury.
Like it was like 3rd and 2, and they had like a rollout play action pass that went incomplete. It was like, you just need Oklahoma to burn timeouts. What are you doing?
No, we gotta tempo. We gotta go tempo.
And then Oklahoma just couldn't do crap. Anyways, Oklahoma State, good.
Well, hang on a little bit more on Oklahoma State. Do you know who their last 3 games are?
No, but
I'll just tell you.
I bet it's a cakewalk.
They go to UCF. They go to Houston. And then they host BYU.
Oh my gosh, they're gonna go 10-2.
And they've already played Cincinnati, and they beat the dog out of them 45-13. So they get to have all 4 of the newbies on the schedule who
That's been nice.
are growing into the quote unquote Power 5 nomenclature, at least in football, except for when BYU plays Texas Tech. But yeah, there's a really solid chance that they might only lose one Big 12 game. And they may be the team. A couple weeks ago, I thought I was being cheeky predicting Oklahoma versus Kansas State in the Big 12 championship.
It's going to be.
It looks like it'd be Texas, Oklahoma State right now.
It could be any of Texas, Oklahoma State, and Kansas, but probably Oklahoma State. Like, whatever. We're not talking about Oklahoma State. They're not on our schedule. Couldn't care less.
I know.
Also, I know it's not on our notes, but like we got to figure out a time to talk about the Big 12 scheduling matrix garbage.
It was. I was not as annoyed by it as a lot of folks, and I get why some were, because there were only 4 protected rivalries: Arizona, Arizona State, Kansas, Kansas State, BYU, Utah, and then Baylor, TCU. I think those are the only ones that will play each other every year for the 4 years that we've seen. But I don't have as much skin in the game for Texas Tech versus Baylor, despite having played nonstop for 80 years or whatever it is, or Tech versus TCU. I mean, I feel like this is where this didn't surprise me at all, because what Yormark has shown is Yormark has shown that he's not going to do things just because that's how they've always been done, and he wants to expand, and he wants more eyeballs, and he wants people to take advantage of this footprint that he's created. So it makes sense that everybody's going to play everybody either 2 or 3 times in that 4-year stretch, as opposed to, well, we're going to keep these guys here and keep these guys here. No, I think he wants commingling, people going across the country, people going everywhere to try to get as many people going. Hey, look at the Big 12. Look what they're up to. Oh, this is an interesting matchup. You don't see UCF play Colorado very often, or whatever. And then it's just, and I did appreciate that they, Texas Tech and Arizona State play each other 3 of those 4 years. That's kind of a natural fit for a possible, quote unquote, new or renewed rivalry, depending on how many decades you want to go back, or generations at this point. But it it didn't bother me as much as it did some folks. I get why it did, but what are your thoughts?
I wish if you're gonna have some protected rivalries, I think every team should have one. And I get like some of them you may have to manufacture something, right? Like, because who would you protect for Iowa State? You probably think Kansas State, but then they would have 2.
Correct.
Iowa
Yeah.
State Cincinnati doesn't hold any interest. Would Texas Tech Houston? No. But Texas Tech Oklahoma State would.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But then who would you pair with Colorado?
And who would you pair with Houston on any of this?
If it wouldn't be Tech, I would say like UCF maybe. I mean, that could be good, but again, you'd have to like be manufacturing something.
Absolutely.
Who would you pair with West Virginia? Cincinnati? Maybe it's just like a regional tie, but is there history there? I don't know. So like I understand like why there are some, but not everybody. But I kind of wish everybody had one.
Yes. I mean, I could see that too. And I've seen a lot of the schedules where, okay, you've got your 3 permanents, and then you rotate 3 and you rotate 3, or whatever it was. And yeah, the math all works, but I'm sure that's not what Yormark cares about. I think he cares about what would be most interesting to sell to TV.
Yeah.
You're going to have these you're not going to have the same teams play each other a third of the season every year. You're going to have, it's going to be bonkers. It's going to be across the wall. You're going to play, everybody's going to play everybody 2 or 3 times in that 4-year stretch. And it's not going to be a rhyme or reason to it necessarily. And I like I said, man, I really get why some folks don't appreciate that. But I just am not at all surprised by this being kind of his vision of trying to get this a more national conference, as opposed to just focusing on your corner of the world for a third of the season. And then, okay, fine. I guess we'll leave Texas. I guess we'll go to Colorado this year. Sure. We'll just go to Fort Worth and Baylor and Stillwater, and then fine. Okay, I guess we'll pack the truck for Arizona. Whatever. No, I think it's his intent was, no, everybody's playing everybody.
Everybody plays everybody. All right. Sorry, I just wanted to throw that in there, but
I know a lot's happened since we recorded.
Okay, so Kansas offense, Jason Bean. He's a senior, 6'3", 195, completing under 61% of his passes, but 1,400 passing yards, 10 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 34 carries, 154 yards on the ground, and another touchdown. When they hand the ball off, they've got a couple of really good running backs, Devin Neal and Daniel Highshaw Jr. I mean, they're both averaging around 6 yards a carry. Neal is at 6.1 yards. Highshaw is at 5.8. Neal's got 828 yards. Highshaw's got 517. Between them, they have 17 touchdowns. They are the team. Kansas as a team is 11th in the country in yards per carry and 18th in rushing yards per game.
And this is 9 games in. This isn't some skewed 3 or 4 games into the season.
No, not at all.
We're well into Big 12 play. They've played some solid teams and they've played some really good football.
Yeah. Through the air, they're looking at 3 main targets. Wide receiver Lawrence Arnold. He's a 6'3", 200-pound guy, 31 receptions, 515 yards, 16 and a half yards per catch, 2 touchdowns. So they don't target any one guy specifically through the air to score necessarily. As long as you got some other team with a bunch of receiving touchdowns, but they're just all over the field. Quentin Skinner, Jr., 6'5", 195, 19 catches, 380 yards. So not as many yards, but 20 yards per catch, 2 touchdowns. Tight end Mason Fairchild, Sr., 6'4", 260, 21 catches, 300 and just about 20 yards, 15 yards per catch, 2 touchdowns. Their offense is just pretty good, man. It's been building for the past couple of years, but they are 12th in college football and third down conversion percentage at 49%. They are 35th in red zone scoring percentage. We talked about TCU being able to drive the ball over the field, but not being able to finish drives. Kansas, they finished drives, man. Just under 89% of all drives end in scores. That end up in the red zone, at least 32 scores and 36 trips, 25 touchdowns to 7 field goals. So again, when they get in the red zone and when they're scoring, a lot of them are touchdowns as opposed to field goals or no scores. So offensively, they pass pretty identically yards per game, identically to Texas Tech, about 236 yards per game. Texas Tech allows 234, but they are passing at 9.4 yards per attempt, whereas Texas Tech is allowing 6.6 yards per attempt. Already mentioned they are running for 198 yards per game. That's at 5.2 yards per carry. Texas Tech is holding teams to just 141 yards per game on 4 yards per carry. They are picking up nearly 50% of their third downs, scoring 35 points per game. Texas Tech is allowing 26 points per game, which is a significant improvement. That you've dropped, 5 or 6 points off your point totals from last year.
Yeah,
but
it's
then
huge.
Just in the position you're at, at 4 and 5, not scoring as many points either. Really, it's going to come down if their offense is tricky. Pre-snap, they're going to motion a lot of guys out there, so they're going to make you declare your coverages. In that, or they're going to get guys confused on whose responsibility is yours in terms of pass coverage. We saw Texas Tech do that a couple times against TCU, where they'll motion a guy into a 3 receiver stack, and then all 3 receivers will go in different directions. And if the defenders aren't clear on their assignments before that motion even comes, it could spring one of the guys loose. Kansas does that kind of motion almost every play, man. They're moving guys a lot. It reminds me of Boise State and Brian Harsin a few years ago. I guess he went to Texas after that, but they move a lot of guys. They also a heavy option team. Even without Daniels, Bean is pretty lethal on the ground too. And he can burn you through the air. When Texas Tech has the ball, they are the 28th ranked offense going up against the 78th ranked defense for the Jayhawks. They are led in tackles by a senior safety, and not like a hybrid linebacker safety type, but safety, true safety, Kenny Logan Jr., 6 foot 205, 61 total tackles, 37 solo. Also has added a forced fumble and an interception. Second on the team, linebacker Rich Miller, 43 tackles, and then JB Brown is other linebacker, 41 tackles. That's a pretty significant gap between 1 and 2. There's 61 tackles to 43 tackles. It's not great that it's a safety. So we talked about this in the preseason and our predictions, uh, where they may not be as good as they were last season or as good as they were projected because they were returning so much on the defensive line. Their defensive line's not contributing so much, at least in tackles. They are in sacks, but tackles, a lot of teams are getting to the second level and not great if they're led in tackles by their true safety back there. They've got 21 sacks on the season through 9 games. Their defensive ends, Austin Booker, he's got 6, and then Jerome Robinson's got 4, and then the rest are scattered 1s and 2s throughout the rest of the depth chart there. But their defensive ends are their main contributors there, and they've added 9 interceptions on the season. As a unit, they are allowing 230 yards through the air at 7.8 yards per attempt, so not great through the air. Allowing teams to run for 164 yards at 4.5 yards per carry. That's not great. Texas Tech is running for 173 yards at 4.5 yards per carry. So imagine that number is going to tick up for the Kansas or in Tech's favor there. And if they're, teams are able to find that much space in the Kansas pass defense, I would assume Texas Tech's going to be able to do that with Baron Morton behind center. They are Kansas is allowing teams to convert 43% of their third downs. Texas Tech's been converting 41. Again, another advantage in Tech's favor. And then Tech is scoring 30 and a half points per game. Kansas is allowing 27 points per game. So really it's going to come down to which defense is going to have their way with the other offense. I don't know how I feel about this one yet, Michael. Not great.
No.
If you look at the CBF graphs, predictions, whatever, it's a heavy favorite for Kansas, 75-25, and probably a 2-score game here, 34-25. So, 35-26 type game, 35-27. Lot of advantages here for the Jayhawks, especially on offense. But again, I like the matchup here. Your offense versus their defense, but the issue is that you're going to be on the road. We've already talked about. You've already seen it. You haven't been so great on the road. You haven't had Baron Morton on the road as a true starter outside of West Virginia, but even then he got hurt early on in that performance. So great opportunity for him to come out and to continue to show how great he is. It is a 3.5 point line as of recording in Kansas's favor. We talked about earlier. Usually a home team gets 3 points. So with it being only 3.5, fairly evenly matched, I would say, at least in terms of the guys that are setting the lines here. Over under at 61, which with these offenses kind of feels, it feels low.
Yes.
So I would say whatever it's going to be an over. You and I both picked Texas Tech to win this game preseason. I am a little less confident at this point, 9 games in, than I was obviously no games in. Michael, what are your thoughts coming into this weekend's matchup?
I feel the same trepidation that you do. The matchup I look like this just looks like an offense friendly matchup. I think as good as Tech's defense has been, and I feel like someday we should give a deep dive on how good they've been. Really, I know they've had hiccups, they've had bad quarters or bad drives or something, but like you mentioned, Texas Tech is averaging 25 something points per game on defense, which is just about unheard of. So the fact that they're able to do that really just makes me think that this is just how good Kansas's offense is. I think that's this running attack that they have, this rushing attack that they have, is going to really wear down the defense a little bit. I looked up time of possession while you were visiting earlier about some other stuff, and I thought, oh, well, Kansas has got to be way up there in time of possession. They probably just eat up clock, and they don't. They hold the ball for 30 minutes per game on average, and Tech holds it for 28. So that's several spots apart from one another. But West Virginia is in the top three, and they only have a 34-minute time of possession. So there's just a lot of leeway there. I think Tech was 109th at 28. So who knows how many people they were tied with. So yeah, from 34 minutes to 28 minutes on holding the ball, it's over 100 spots on the FBS list. But I'm just thinking that this is going to be a defense that is really going to give, an offense that's going to give Tech's defense fits. Kansas's defense is their quote unquote weakness, and Tech's offense is coming into its own. I know that I don't think Tharp is playing again. I think he's still down, and there just really hasn't been a go-to receiver emerge. But I do feel a lot more confident with Morton back there. I think I downplayed how well the offense played for the majority of the game last week just because that third quarter was such a clunker for everybody. So right on an instant reaction, you're coming in and talking about it thinking, well, that game could have gone another way. And so you take almost a week from that and think Tech won a conference game against a team they've barely beaten in the last 8 years. So that's great. But now they're going to Lawrence against a team that they typically win without breaking a sweat. And man, I don't think they're going to do it. I predicted Tech to lose last week. I was wrong, which is great. But as much as I don't want to predict them to lose again, I just think this offense that Kansas puts up is one of those that is kind of relentless and really hard to contain for a full game. I'm sure there'll be some 3 and outs on occasion, but man, there's just, if they're getting third downs half the time, like you pointed out earlier, it could be just a really long day where the defense just can't get off the field. But then the offense again can score. The 11 a.m. I don't like that. I can't predict what the atmosphere is going to be like in Lawrence. I'm not sure if they'll be as pumped about a Texas Tech team showing up or not. But I do think there'll be a lot more fans than on a typical Saturday at 11 a.m. in November in Lawrence that Texas Tech football have encountered in the last decade. But man, that score you put up was exactly what I had in mind. So I'm going to go a little bit higher because I have faith in these offenses, but I don't want Kansas to cover just out of hubris, I guess. So I'm going to have Kansas winning 37-34.
I started off closer but lower scoring game right at the 61 total. I had it 31-30. I was like, no, there's going to be some more points. So I've got 34-31. I was hoping maybe there'd be a basketball game. They play on Friday night. They're hosting Manhattan Friday night, so no split attentions there. And then they're traveling to Kentucky on Tuesday, which could be good. But their preseason number 1 are the Jayhawks, which we'll talk about basketball in a minute. We'll get there. But Michael and I are both picking a close loss there, which is probably pretty frustrating.
Possibly heartbreaking.
As you know, I hate to say it, as long as it's not a blocked field goal, fumbled back to offense, but back to the Jayhawks, let them try again. Or like a walk-off pick 6 or something, or a fat fleet scoop and score.
Or a butt fumble.
Oh gosh, no. So we're both down. Obviously, we'd love to be wrong here. If you lose this game, it really puts you in a bind to make it to a bowl game. So if you've got hopes on a bowl game, you need this one. Michael, what were your thoughts on McGuire's comments about who's being played and who's being held out for being able to take a red shirt.
Yeah,
Do
I
you have
found that
strong
interesting.
feelings one way or the other?
No, I probably should, but I think a lot of folks are looking at it as well. We're throwing in the towel, looking into next year. Yeah, sure, that's one way to look at it. I don't think that's at all what he means. I I feel like he's probably comfortable with the depth at that position and may not want to take a risk. Excuse me, at this point, but I didn't have a strong opinion on it. And if Tech was 7-2 right now, like Kansas, I don't think anybody else would either. What are you thinking?
I mean, I understand the thought process that he laid out, that you're trying to preserve as much eligibility as you can. Um, I also understand the optics of it, how it looks bad, that like you're basically conceding the last game, that you're not going to win in Austin. Um, I don't know. I have a hard time being too upset about trying to stack your roster with experienced older players, especially within your own program. When now whether or not they stick around or are on the roster and with your program as their eligibility is running out is one thing, but um, I think something you can point to, like he's getting guys as much experience as he can, and also trying to preserve that, so it's not like you're not playing at all and redshirting. Um, so I was like, I don't feel as strong about it as I've seen some other people. I think he's saying what we're all thinking he's saying without him actually saying the words. Um, I don't love that outlook, but I'm also like he he kind of got burned on the overly optimistic outlook this season.
Yeah.
um, so it's like it's okay. It's okay in my book that if you wanna try to like reel that back in and try to be a little bit more realistic and pragmatic, like yeah, I get that. And
Well,
he's not gonna
and
say it, but
no, and I, I just keep going back to the when things weren't looking so good and Shuck was still the starter. A lot of the sentiment was, well, might as well just let Barron play the rest of it. Whatever happens, happens. I guess that sentiment doesn't count anymore when it's not the quarterback.
that's a good point. Yeah,
It's kind of the same exact philosophy, except you're further into the season. You know exactly who you are almost. Why not let some of the young guys get some experience, or or shuffle things around and see what you've got in other positions? But that was only an acceptable call to make in September when it comes to the most important position on the team. So I'm not really shocked or appalled by it or anything, but I do think a lot of folks were in that same camp before because Shuck wasn't their guy, and then now that this has happened, it's time to be upset about it. But it's the same philosophy that they were preaching.
yeah. You look around the Big 12 results from this past weekend, and then look at the schedule for this upcoming weekend.
Yeah, so I think the first 4 games were decided by a combined 9 points, Spencer.
Yeah,
There were
I
some
was
squeakers.
just counting that up. Yeah, overtime win for Texas by 3. Um, Oklahoma State wins over the Sooners by 3. Houston beat Baylor by 1 in overtime, and UCF beats Cincinnati by 2.
Yeah.
So a lot of close games. Like I said, only watched a few minutes of Bedlam, and was just surprised at just the lack of want to win there from either team. Um, Thought that Kansas State would have a shot, and they did. I mean, they're still a good team, but they've been pretty good this season, but they've also been historically good on the road in Austin. So them taking them to overtime is not a surprise to me. West Virginia wiping the floor with BYU, it's kind of demoralizing a little bit.
Yeah, I had West Virginia because that was a 9.5 point spread. They were favored quite a bit,
but they
and
won by
so
30.
but I still had that, and that still surprised me. That's all I was getting at is I thought, I finally need to believe in West Virginia this season. It's November, and I'm finally coming around. Yeah, I'll take West Virginia to cover, and whew, boy, yeah, they did.
And then
No problem.
Jayhawks on the road in Ames took down the Cyclones, who again were surprising to me. I think, like I said, I've said this before. I expected their roster would have been more impacted by the preseason stuff. But Rocco Brecht looks pretty good as quarterback. That's an Iowa State football name if I've ever heard it.
No kidding.
Yeah, but they won 28-21. This upcoming weekend, only one 11 a.m. game, and it's us in Kansas, and unfortunately it's us probably bringing that down than Kansas, because almost always Kansas the previous seasons. You play 11 a.m. against Kansas because Kansas was bad, and now it's your fault. But at least you're not on ESPN Plus, so that's one thing. Because Baylor, I swear, they've just been relegated to ESPN Plus. Baylor at Kansas State. Kansas State's a 3-touchdown favorite. ESPN Plus, 2 p.m. I think Kansas State's going to be. I mean, not that they need any extra motivation, but Baylor's pretty bad. Kansas State's going to be rebounding, I think, pretty well. Give me Kansas State to cover that 3 touchdowns.
Same. Yeah, and that's in Manhattan. So yeah, give me the Wildcats.
Oklahoma State on the road, 2:30 on ESPN in Orlando. They're only a 2.5-point favorite over the Golden Knights against the Knights there. Give Oklahoma State, with what I've seen, like, unless it's just one of those like weird rebounding games where they're just not like basketball rebound, but like they just don't show up. Like, this should be an easy game for them, easier than 2.5 points. So give me Oklahoma State on the road with those points.
Yeah, same. UCF, of course. I'd just like to remind everybody this when I can. Blew a 26-point lead to Baylor at home. So Oklahoma State, I'm kind of saying the same thing I said about West Virginia. I guess it's about time I believe that they're pretty darn good, and I'll take them at a 2.5-point favorite on the road.
West Virginia at Oklahoma. Oklahoma's a 12.5-point favorite, 6 p.m. on Fox. Is this where the Mountaineers fall apart? Do they make a statement and keep it close? Do they win this game, Michael?
12.5 is a lot of points. I'm taking the Nears on this one at plus 12.5. I wouldn't be surprised if they win, but yeah, Oklahoma coming off of losses to Kansas and Oklahoma State. I'm sure they're back at home. It's at night, but I think their fans are so spoiled. There'll probably be a good amount of Sooner fans there, obviously, but I don't know if it'll be quite the crowd they would have gotten if they were coming in with just with 0 losses basically.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I'll take West Virginia to cover, but I still think Oklahoma's going to win this one. Cincinnati at Houston. Ugh.
Oof.
Houston's a 2.5-point favorite at home. 6 p.m. FS1.
Give me Houston, but I don't like it.
Yeah, I don't like it either. Same. No, you know what? Give me Cincinnati on the road.
All right, we'll be different. We'll be different there.
Texas, 9.5-point favorite on the road in Fort Worth. Road teams have won the past few of these matchups, but that will continue to hold true this weekend. I don't think TCU is going to be anywhere close to sniffing this one. Give me Texas in the points.
I'm going to take TCU because Texas didn't cover at home versus Kansas State. So TCU
by 1
plus 9.5.
Okay.
Well, and they also blew like a 20-7 lead.
It happens, man. Iowa State, 6.5-point favorites on the road in Provo, up in the mountains, 9:15. Got some Big 12 after dark. ESPN.
Oh man.
I think BYU sucks. Give me Iowa State.
Same. It's interesting if things go about like they should. There could be Big 12 football on for over 12 hours this Sunday or this Saturday.
Well, yeah,
Just
because Texas Tech will start off at 11.
right. So there could be, depending on how long that game is, depends on how much Kansas runs the ball. By the time Baylor and Kansas State start, the Tech game could be. Oh no, there's no way it won't be. Yeah, there's no
It'll
way
still
it
be
won't be
going.
done in 3 hours.
Yeah.
Absolutely, it'll be done. It won't be done. Yeah. So it kicks off at 2. So that was our saving grace. I thought it was 2:30.
Yeah, if it was 2:30, there may have been a little bit of a break there, a window for there not to be Big 12 football on for 14 hours. But nah, man. If you're a fan of Big 12 football, strap in.
Yeah.
Don't leave that couch. No
14
window.
straight hours of it. Not a single lull in Big 12 action.
Which, like, if you want the conference on TV, isn't that what you want?
Yeah.
Like, you don't want
That was
like you've got 3 games stacked at 6, which I don't like. But every team is playing, so there's not getting around having multiple games in the same window. You only have one at 11 and one at 9:15. You probably could have doubled up there at the earlier game. You could have moved the Kansas State game up. But I assume if you're on ESPN Plus, the home team gets to pick that, right?
Yeah, I would think so.
So, and I mean, you don't want to pick the 11 a.m. game. You got 3, you got 2 at 6 and a 6:30.
Yeah, and who knows what the weather's going to be like on Saturday night in Manhattan. They may have been like, yeah, let's get this over with at 2. We don't need to.
I don't even know why I care
it's-
enough to look, but I'm gonna look.
Well, you do because you're a dad, and that's what we do. We look up the weather for Manhattan on November 11th.
It's gonna be
Can't help it.
beautiful, bright, sunshiny day, high of 63.
Oh man, that is gorgeous. That's football weather.
Better than
It's weird that that's November football weather in the Midwest.
better than what we're gonna get in the next couple of days.
Yeah, it is. I think Lubbock's not going to get out of the 50s on Saturday. So
Lawrence, yeah, this is I don't know why I expected it to be different. 62, high of 62 on Saturday.
but yeah, this is kind of what Yormark's looking at. This is what he's excited about, I'd imagine, with Colorado and Utah and the Arizonas, with having teams in the mountain time zone. Arizona's going to be in the mountain standard forever. They don't believe in daylight, but whatever. So I think this could be your typical Sunday, or I keep saying Sunday. Sorry, everybody. Could be your typical Saturday once we get into the next season, and you start seeing just nonstop Big 12 games from 11 to 9:30. 11 kickoffs to 9:30 kickoffs, and they will all make sense because there will always be a team, that may be part of the Matrix plan. You never know. Maybe they always wanted to have Colorado, one of the Utahs, and one of the Arizonas hosting every single slot during the year, and that may have been one way they figured it out.
Well,
Just that way they could take up that 9:30 time slot and it not be in Orlando.
it would be a missed opportunity if you didn't have a game on. I mean, I know the early window game on the East Coast, they actually kick off at noon local time. But to run it from 11 to midnight every weekend, always have a Big 12 game on, you'll find something for somebody anytime you have the TV on. Ow. All right. I'm just going to play it in the background because we got to get going. We got basketball here, Michael. Lady Raiders kicked off their season. That we already touched on it a little bit. 95-53. They hosted UTRGV. Then they've got their upcoming schedule. They've got Tarleton coming up on Friday night. You mentioned that. You got to pick which Lady Texas Tech team you want to support. I mean, in terms of like significance of the game or the match, I'd probably say you should probably walk over to the John Walker Soccer Complex, take on some tournament action instead of a preseason non-conference matchup. But your Lady Raiders look pretty good tonight, man.
Yeah, and as weird as it sounds, 95-53, it wasn't that close. Uh, the first half, I think Texas Tech only allowed 15 points, but then scored 68. If I'm doing my math right, 25 plus 37. Hang on. Nope, 62. So it was 62-15 at halftime. My
Good
goodness.
gravy.
But yeah, just a heck of a night. Shavers with 26 points on 9 of 11 field goals. Maupin with 16. Everybody contributing, everybody getting in on the action. I was really impressed with Gerlich coming out with the full court press, and she stuck with it for a lot of the first half. And the girls were relentless, getting good traps, forcing them to turn the ball over, getting 10 seconds. Is it still 10 seconds in college?
I gotta be honest. I don't know enough about the rules differences in the women's game versus men's.
Well, I don't know if it's 8 in men's, right? To get across half court.
Yes.
Okay, I couldn't remember if it's anyway. I know they did that at least once. So, we will obviously try to keep up with the Lady Raiders best we can, but your best bet is to check out Seeing Scarlet. They
For
are
sure.
truly in tune with the Lady Raiders. They have players on their podcast. They also are staying really up to date on everything going on with the soccer team. Had a former player on today or recently. So be sure to check out Seeing Scarlet. They will be able to go into a lot more in depth than we are. And I think, did you go over the next couple games the Lady Raiders have? I know that we talked about Tarleton.
I just mentioned the Tarleton game, Friday night, ESPN Plus, ESPN3. So what you could do, if you had the device and you got the bandwidth, you can watch the game while you're at the soccer match.
That's true. And I saw that, I put ESPN Plus /ESPN3 because there was just a link that you click on the Lady Raiders schedule there. So I'm not sure which one it is. But obviously most of us are probably already paying for Plus, so it doesn't really affect you. But if you're not paying for Plus, there's a chance it could be on 3. It's just kind of hard to tell. And then Monday, so there'll be 2 games before we record next. So Monday they will host Lamar at 6 p.m. and I don't think that one's going to be televised unless something changes.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
And this day and age, like every game should be on TV or streaming service or platform somewhere.
Well, especially in that shows the disparity in women's athletics.
Yep.
But I think what disproves that rule is if it's on, people are going to watch it. If it's available, people are going to find it and watch it. It's just a matter of getting someone to believe that. And you see Seeing Scarlet taking off, and a lot of that is because they have a lot of fans who are really interested in Texas Tech women's athletics specifically, and they're finding them and they're tuning into them and they're being a part of their show, and they're being Coach Gerlich has given shout outs, and it's just one of those things. If it's available, people are going to seek it out and find it.
Yep.
It's just a matter of convincing folks that it needs to be available.
Yep. All right. So men's tip off tomorrow. They get their season underway.
Finally,
hosting Texas A&M Commerce. The women will actually play them in a couple of weeks. I think the 17th. I did, before we get into the Tech game, like I did find preseason projections, projected win totals, over unders for sorry, not over unders, totals, total wins, total losses, and conference records. So I want to go through the teams in their projected order and see where you think they may be, opportunity to move up or down here. Surprising to me, Kansas picked number one. That's not surprising, but this model has them going 13-5. So,
Hmm.
and only winning 23 regular season games. This is not counting anything postseason.
So are we saying when we say predict, are we predicting the total wins or the conference wins?
Let's do conference wins because I don't know enough
Okay.
about their non-conference schedule. I know Kansas has a pretty beefy non-conference schedule. I bet Houston does too. Texas Tech does not outside of the tournament. But so let's just stick with the conference because Big 12 conference is pretty dang stacked. Looking at Texas Tech, I was trying to find the preseason where you're starting off in some of the rankings and ratings platforms that will follow KenPom, BPI, Haslametrics. I was looking at Haslametrics. The 14 Big 12 teams, the lowest one in Cincinnati at 75. So depending on home versus away, every conference game is going to be quad one.
Yeah.
You've
absolutely.
got 5 Big 12 teams in the top 25. Only the SEC has more, and they have 6. So starting off, Kansas 13-5 in the conference. They are preseason number 1 in the country. So again, I think those two things come together to tell you the Big 12 is going to be pretty dang difficult to get through unscathed. Number 1 team in the country projected to lose 5 conference games and still win the conference.
Yeah, but I'm still going to take the under and not be. I mean, not like they're gonna go way beyond that or way less than that. I just think that some other team is going to trip them up. I think they'll lose 6 in Big 12 play and go 12-6 instead of 13-5. That's basically where I'm at.
I'm going to take Kansas to go over.
You think they're going to cruise?
I think they'll probably go like 14-4. Like 4 losses kind of feels like a lot, but Houston
4 feels like a lot. Oh man, you're probably right.
I know. Houston 12.5 wins to 5.5 losses in conference play. They are preseason number 2 in the country. So 1-2. They're obviously going to be 1-2 in Big 12 play here. Man, they were pretty good. I think they played a really tough schedule last year, so I don't even think that like there's going to be like a huge adjustment to Big 12 play outside of like they may have been more tested non-conference than in conference. So I think game in and game out every week, they're going to be tested a bit harder. I think probably just a little under. I mean, if they go 12-6, that would be under here. But still, winning 2 out of every 3 conference games.
Yeah, I'm on the same page as you, but as tough as their schedule was last year, which I agree with you, they will have more of a target on their back this year whenever they're on the road, because everyone will want to take their best shot at them, and especially a lot of the geographically close teams, because I know as far as we are away from Houston, we have seen how good they are, and they have been a team that, man, I wish Tech could play them, or that's just a lot of, just one of those kind of state pride deals. And I have a feeling that folks in Waco and Fort Worth and, even in Stillwater and stuff kind of feel the same way. So I think it will be a schedule that they're not going to be overwhelmed by or anything, but I think they're going to get everybody's best shot. They're going to be kind of, Kansas number 2 in the league, aside from Texas. I think Texas gets everybody's best shot because of Texas, but it'll be those 3.
So a little surprised, at least to me, as I was putting this together. This third team was BYU. Pretty easy for me. They were projected here 10.5, 7.5. And probably just like percentage points ahead of Texas, who also has 10.4, 7.6. Give me BYU to hit the under.
Same. I don't know anything about them, but I'm going to take the under.
Texas, same 10.4, 7.6. I'm taking the over. I think
I'm going to take some overs eventually, but I'm taking the under on
you're
that one for
4-0 on unders right now. We're 4 for 4. TCU coming in at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th, 10.2 to 7.8. So obviously really close to the couple of teams ahead of them. I don't know enough about their roster to feel confident either way. Just give me the emotional pick here, under.
I'm going to take the over because I need to start taking some eventually. But, they did score 108 points last night, and I know it was against Southern, but I don't know. They might be a little surprising.
Baylor, probably pretty low here, 9.6 wins to 8.4 losses. This is another one I'm going to take the over on, just with the history there for Scott Drew and his program.
Exact same. And Baylor, Texas Tech will be the last Big 12 team to start their season. Tonight Baylor played, last night the other 12 teams played on Monday night. So everyone has played at this point except for Texas Tech, and Baylor did win tonight against Auburn. They won 88-82.
Oh, they were down at half.
Yeah, they were down by 9 at half. They were down 43-34, came back, scored 54 points in the second half.
Jeez.
And won it.
Yeah. So Texas Tech up next, 9.4 wins to 8.6 losses. So basically saying you're going to go 500 in conference play. That feels about right. I would love to be wrong here and get the over. What am I at? Over, under, over. 3-3 so far. Give me an over here. Let's say Tech gets to 10 wins, 10 conference wins, at least 10 conference wins.
I'm taking another under.
Oh my gosh, Michael.
I'm just letting myself, letting the dust settle on the McGasland era. Let's just see where we are. Let's see where we land.
Iowa State, same numbers as Texas Tech, 9.4 to 8.6. To keep everything aligned, I'm going to take the under.
I'm taking the over kind of for the same reasoning, but I've learned not to underestimate them, despite how things may look at different points in their season.
That's probably a smart play for you to have it under Tech over Iowa State. Oklahoma, 8.4, 9.6. So this is where the teams are going to start falling under 500 in conference play, starting with Oklahoma. 8 and 10. As that feels about where they've been. I'm going to say under, but like at 8, because it says 8.4. But give me the under here, and I have them going like 8, 10. You're taking the over, aren't you?
No, I'm trying to figure out where I'm going to do that, because I've got
well, the next team up is an over
yeah.
candidate for sure.
That's where I'm headed. Okay, I'm
although
take the under on Oklahoma.
Early season returns on Kansas State not looking good. They lost to was it Abilene Christian? Was it?
No. Kansas State lost to USC.
USC, that's what it was, and not good like performance from USC, but
and it was at a neutral site and all that. And USC's ranked. It was just kind of one of those. I watched a little bit of that game. It was pretty ugly. The first half I saw.
Yeah, this Big 12 schedule snuck up. I didn't realize some teams were going to play before Texas Tech. I thought it was going to be more like everybody was playing on Wednesday, but no, we're going to be last.
Yeah, every single team played.
I'm taking Kansas State to finish better than 7 wins in conference play. I think a 7-11 conference schedule would be pretty disheartening for the momentum they built after year one. do realize they're missing Noel and the other guy they had, the transfer they had come in. But I think Tang's going to have him closer to 500 than that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Kansas State I'm not going to underestimate them either.
Cincinnati, 7.4 to 10.6. Give me the under here.
How many unders can I have?
9.
7?
7.
Okay. This might be my last one. Give me the under there too.
So I need 2 more overs and 1 more under. West Virginia. This one feels low, but then you got to remember like how much talent they lost in the transfer portal, and they don't have Huggins. Give me the over here, right? I need 2 more overs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I need 2 overs. So give me West Virginia over here at 6 wins.
Same.
UCF. This is gotta be like my last under. I think they're gonna be bad. And Oklahoma State, surprising here to finish at the very bottom of that list at 5 conference wins. We're both taking them to finish better than that, to go better than 5-13.
Yeah, they'll have some random kid make 10 3-pointers on a night. But Oklahoma State that's who you were thinking of earlier, lost 59-64 hosting Abilene Christian.
Ooh,
and just to recap everybody, all of the Big 12 teams won of the 13 that have played, except for Kansas State and Oklahoma State. But everyone else won, and none of them were really close. They were all convincing wins. So not a surprise there at this point in the season, except for Oklahoma State's.
BYU put up 110 on Houston Christian.
Yes. Yeah. And TCU had 108 over Southern.
Oh my gosh. Cincinnati. 11-point win over UIC, whatever UIC is.
They're the Flames. I don't know.
Anyways. Yeah. So upcoming for Texas Tech, obviously starting off home versus Texas A&M Commerce. If you're looking at Haslametrics matchups here, Haslametrics has Texas Tech at 50, the lowest of the 3 major services here. KenPom has you at 43, BPI 45. All these will settle in quite a bit once you get a few games in. But you're facing team number 308. So pretty significant disparity there. Mainville had some numbies for you. The spread. Vegas has Texas Tech as a 22.5 point favorite. KenPom 20, T-Rank a little over 16, with totals right in the mid 130s. So Texas Tech obviously to win here and win big. I just can't wait to watch this team play. The highlights, whatever, from the game against the exhibition game versus A&M were exciting. I want to see them actually play another team. I get, well, they're not going to be a great team here in Texas A&M Commerce, but I want to see the guys, man.
Yeah, I'm ready. I have severe FOMO still from last Sunday.
I may have to have like
Sunday before last
roster pulled up on my phone or print it off at the office so I can figure out who everybody is. But
I do that every year now, Spencer. I absolutely
with the turnover
roster.
The turnover in the basketball rosters, man, it's hard to keep up.
It's tough, man, and especially if McCasland, he played 10 guys against A&M.
Mm-hmm.
If he keeps that type of rotation throughout the year, and we got used to seeing Adams and Beard play 7 or 8 at the most. If we've got 10 guys to keep up with, man, I don't know what we're going to do.
Yeah. Next up would be Sunday the 12th, 1 p.m. ESPN Plus versus San Jose State. So a little bit better of a team, 170 in terms of Haslametrics. And then the following game will be Thursday the 16th, Texas A&M Corpus Christi. So you're really taking on the Texas A&M system
Taking
the
them down
first couple of weeks with
one by one.
A&M in the exhibition, and then Commerce and Corpus Christi. Blinn College is got to be on there somewhere, right? Just kidding. But they are A&M Corpus Christi, the Hooks. They are 270 in Haslametrics. That'll be 7 p.m. Thursday the 16th on ESPN Plus. And then Thanksgiving Eve kicks off the Battle for Atlantis tournament. So, game 1 versus Villanova. Let's wrap this thing up, Michael. What do you say?
Yeah, it's probably time. I think we probably should.
Let's get to what do we learn and get you on to Kansas football on Saturday.
What do we learn, Palmer?
I don't know, sir.
I don't know either.
You know, I said Kansas, and I was like, all the games we have even before Kansas. You got basketball tomorrow, Lady Raiders soccer, Lady Raider basketball, soccer, and then football. But, man, I've talked about this before. I'm a big fan of the Texas Tech magazine that comes out called Evermore.
Oh yeah, I got my copy too. Thanks to you telling me about it.
Huge, like I loved this edition. Every story in here was fascinating. The one about the band director and his work to get the uniforms updated. The story on Bradford, Tony Bradford working part-time as a security guard on campus as part of his goal to be working in law enforcement post his playing days. The weird, not weird, the overlap of all these celebrities that were on campus around the same time, from Ed Whitaker to John Denver, Jerry Rawls. Like it's fascinating to see all these people that played huge roles, you know, in and around tech or just pop culture, were on campus around the same time. Again, so I can't speak more highly of this publication. It's free. It's produced by my college of media communications, but it's not a media and communications publication. It's a Texas Tech publication. It's fantastic. There's even a little story here at the very beginning, the very opening of the magazine about handwritten score of the Matador song that was donated to the archives during this centennial celebration, and just the story there. Victory Bells goes on, talks about like notable alumni and their contribution to their field. Zach Thomas, Ludwig Aberg, General C.Q. Brown Jr., Goen Band, Josh Young. It's fantastic. You should subscribe and get your copy next quarter.
Yeah, absolutely free. Like Spencer said, you just go find them on the internet, find Evermore on the internet, give them your address, and they'll send you one the next time they have one.
I'm trying to even find out. So this was issue number 5. So you have missed a lot, but it's not like you have a whole back catalog of things to get through. But it's a fantastic publication. I love it. I know several of the staff on it that are involved in this. Love it. So, what'd you learn, Michael?
I've never really dabbled with marinating steaks, but my wife had the idea this weekend. I usually just, season them, or every now and then if it's a sirloin, I'll just put some salt on them, maybe the night before, and then just let them stay in the fridge. But we experimented with some marinating of some New York strips. HEB had a sale.
Yeah, they did. I think we partook of that too.
You did too. And the marinade she found, it had just kind of a little bit of everything in it. There was some balsamic vinegar, soy sauce, Italian seasoning. Gosh, what else did she find? We just had it all laying around, and I think there were a couple other things. Oh, garlic, some garlic cloves, because
So
we like
she
those frozen ones.
she made her own marinade, like by a bottle.
No, yeah, well, she found a recipe for one, but then
Impressive.
even then, we substituted some things. Like we didn't have enough lemon juice, and so for the acidity, she just used balsamic vinegar instead. It kind of measured out about the same amount. Some red pepper flakes, some salt and pepper, just some really basic stuff that you just have around. And we put those bad boys in the night before, and I cooked them. It wasn't quite 24 hours later, maybe 20, something like that. And brother,
Hmm.
just a different experience. I mean, every bite was juicy somehow. Even there was a little bit of one left over because my 6-year-old was just going to town on it, which is always just fascinating to me. And I nailed it. I cooked them perfectly. I mean, it was a really solid, mostly medium rare, but probably medium to be if I'm just being fair.
Sure.
But I cooked them just perfectly. I did a really good job on the Weber. But man, that was just a whole different experience. I wasn't expecting to enjoy it as much as I did, and all three of us did, and my wife and I especially were liking it. And this is be the 10th time someone's listened to me talk about food and go, finally, I've been marinating steaks for 30 years. That's the only way to do it. And yeah, but I have had really good success with just maybe rubbing a little olive oil on it and putting some whatever steak rub I have or like at the time and just not worrying about it. So, but this is kind of, it was such a good result, and I can see how great it would be for a steak like sirloin that just doesn't have a lot of fat,
Mm-hmm.
that you really want to get some of that a little bit more flavor and a little bit more have a little bit juicier steak. I really think this would be beneficial for that, but it was great for these strips, and these are just solid cuts of meat too.
So I haven't just straight up grilled a steak in a while. I've been on the sous vide reverse sear, which is quite a bit more involved than just throwing the steak on a grill. But in that vacuum bag, I'll throw some W sauce, and then the steaks will be seasoned with salt, pepper, garlic, and then probably a healthy dusting of Montreal steak seasoning, which has a lot of salt in it too.
And black pepper.
But like that's been my go-to for a while. I don't change it up. I've used liquid smoke before, and I just don't like it on steak. And then it'll come out of the package, obviously, out of the sous vide. It'll be wet, so you gotta have to pat it off. And then it'll get on the grill or with the flamethrower. I don't re-season it out of the bag, which I guess you could, but they've been perfectly they've been acceptably seasoned out of the bag. And I know I have a hard time eating something else that's not ribeye. So like ribeye cooked this way, and I also it's not because this steak needs it. I have a hard time not using A1 sauce because I really like A1 sauce.
Yes. Yeah.
It's good to me. I like it. The steak's also really, really good. I just also really, really like A1.
Yeah, you probably have one bite just to confirm. All right.
It's a really good steak. Now,
It's a good steak. Okay, let's get the A1.
Yeah.
I've fine. We're beyond there. Done putting on airs.
But anyways, that'll do it for us on the 23 Personnel Podcast this week. Pretty solid episode. We got you 3 sports, excuse me. 4 teams, 3 sports. A week's worth of games coming up in the next few days, starting tonight, obviously, with Lady Raiders. Men's team tips off tomorrow. Lady Raiders again on the court Friday. Soccer team Friday night. Football on the road Saturday. So pick your poison. So much Texas Tech athletics to get to. That'll do it for Michael. I'm Spencer. We'll catch you guys next time.
Thank you for listening to the 23 Personnel Podcast. Help us out by subscribing, rating the show, and leaving a review. Follow us on Twitter at 23 Personnel, Spencer at PuntSuck, and Michael at Michael_LBK. Be sure to catch the next episode. And until then, guns up and let the tortillas fly.